Taylor here, and welcome to Sew Wednesday. I'm super excited for this week's broadcast because I'm going to come at you with some hacks and tips and things I found from the dollar store that we can use in our sewing room for organization and other things. But first, I have a really important question to ask you guys. So, my friend and I are in an argument. I like to sew without shoes, so barefoot, but she thinks that that's weird and that nobody sews barefoot. So, go ahead and leave a comment below and let me know. Do you sew barefoot or with shoes on? She doesn't know that I'm going to take this poll, but I think I'm right. So we're going to see with all the comments that you guys post who is right. And I'm excited to let her know that I am right. But if you guys prove me wrong, then we'll just leave it up to that. But I'm super excited to see. Okay, so let's get into the dollar store wins. So first off, this is an extra dollar store hack that I found after I had already purchased all the other things that I'm going to show you guys. But the dollar store actually has sewing clips. So this is Dollar Tree that I'm talking about, but in some Dollar Trees, they look different. They almost look like little mini wood, like wood clamps, but they're about this big. And I actually have some of those kinds that I use in my upholstery studio, so I just don't have them here. But sewing clips, for those of you who don't know what a sewing clip is, it looks like this. And basically, you can just use it on the edge of a seam to hold things together instead of pinning. So that is a win. If you need some sewing clips, Dollar Store has them. Okay, so next, I've got my bag of Dollar Tree goodies that we're going to go through, and I'll let you know what cool stuff I found. So first of all, this one isn't really different. Like, it's not a surprising find, but these are little clip things that you can put on the corners of your your ironing board covers. I know sometimes they wear out a little bit and they flop all over and come off. So these are really cool little additions that you can get for $1 and just clip on there. I've also used them for things like fitted sheets that don't like to stay on my bed. So that's just an idea there. Next cool thing that I found is these. These are glass containers, and I like to use them to put my pins in. So like I'll put certain pins in different jars, or my hand sewing needles, so that they're not just rolling around in my drawer. The other thing that I have used these for is sometimes if you do any work on like intricately beaded prom dresses or wedding dresses, those beads need to come off and then be reattached. And these are really helpful for holding those all in one place instead of letting them roll all over the sewing room. Okay, next thing that I found was one of these cool organizers. So it's got all these different little compartments, and I'm actually planning on using mine for thread and stuff like that, because right now I have some drawers in my sewing room that are basically just a giant mess. And I just throw everything in there, but this is going to be just small enough to fit into those drawers. And then instead of just piling everything in, I can just open the drawer, open the case, and then have everything in their spot. And I'm super excited about that. Okay, next thing that I found is similar to that. They are little, it's a 2-piece pack of organizer baskets. And they're a little small, you can see, but The reason why I got these small ones is because in my upholstery studio, I have a weird shaped drawer that just has a bunch of crap and stuff in it. And so these are going to fit perfectly in that drawer. And then I can have little bins instead of just throwing them all in. Kind of similar how I'm going to do this in my sewing room. So the storage solutions at Dollar Tree are the best for sewing room hacks. Now, this one is my favorite, and it comes with some other hacks that aren't necessarily Dollar Tree or Dollar Store themed, but I did find a really cool thing at the Dollar Store to go along with it. So here's the hack that I have for you that's not necessarily Dollar Store themed. So I like to use these manila folder type things. You can see I have names of patterns on the top here. I like to just put my pattern pieces in these and keep them in a filing cabinet. This is helpful for two reasons. Number one, if you've ever used like one of those tissue patterns, like from the Joann's or the fabric store, folding them back up small enough to get them back into the stupid little sleeve is so hard. So I usually just kind of fold them up small enough to put them in here, and then just put the sleeve in there as well, so I have all the information. Then plus it's way easier to find it in the middle of all of my patterns, because I will just write the name here instead of having to pull out all those sleeves or envelopes and looking through them. The other thing is, nowadays with all the PDF or downloadable patterns, they often don't even have a sleeve for storage. So rather than just piling them all in a drawer or in a basket somewhere, this is a really nice way to organize them. Plus, a good way to save time sewing is if you pre-cut, like batch cut a bunch of projects. So for instance, if you are a sewing club member with Sew Up Box, you've gotten the pre-cut project kits, and those are huge time savers, right? Well, if you're sewing things for yourself and you've got like 4 projects that you want to do, it will save time if you just cut all of them first and then go back and sew them. So for instance, this one that's labeled museum sales, if you look in here, I've got all these fabrics cut out and just sitting in here with the pattern instructions. That way I can just cut out things, file them away, and then once I'm done cutting out my 4 or 5 projects, I can go and sew those and then start the whole process over. Now, how does this go together with the dollar store? Well, check out this really cool thing that I found. If you don't have a file cabinet or a bunch of storage, or maybe your file cabinet's full, but you don't want to throw away all your projects or patterns, this thing is, let me see, yep, you can read that. It's a storage box. So you can see this picture down here. Whoop. It folds up and basically is the right size for file folders. And this is a perfect way if you don't want to spend like $50 on one of those metal file cabinets. You can get a few of these and just write on the outside what type of patterns are in there. And maybe you put like all your shirt patterns in one, all your stuffed animal patterns in another, all your Sew Up Box downloadable patterns in another one, and then on top you can have all the projects that you're currently working on cutting out, like I showed you with my museum sales. I am most excited about this thing that I found at the dollar store. So I hope that you guys kind of enjoyed that roundup. It was super fun for me to put together, and I was so excited to share it with you. Now we've got a couple other things that I'm going to cover and talk about, and they're super exciting. And then we're going to get to some questions. So if you have any questions for me about anything about sewing, your sewing machine, is your sewing machine acting up and you want to ask for some help troubleshooting that, go ahead and leave a comment below, and I'll get to those at the end of the broadcast. If you're watching the replay, you can still leave a comment, and I'll get back to those comments and answer those throughout the week whenever you leave them. Okay, so I'm super excited, guys. I want to let you know what's going on in the Sew Up Box studio this week. So as you can see here behind me, I've got some little clear boxes with some fabrics in it. Now these are like what I alluded to earlier, the pre-cut kits that we send out to our sewing club members. Those are getting, it's really hard to point when I'm on a live video. There we go. Those are getting ready to be sent out next week to all of our club members. I'm not going to really spoil what that project is, but I do have a quick clip video in a second that will have a little bit of spoilers in it. So if you want to be surprised, just close your eyes. But I want to show you this as well. So back here, I've got all these boxes ready to go out to our subscribers next week, actually. But I think we're going to send them out on the 2nd, but definitely between the 1st and the 4th. And I'm super excited to send those out. Now, I'm going to do a sneak peek here. Give me a second. So one of the things that people have been so excited about in this upcoming box is, wait for it, spoiler alert, these awesome, can you see that? It's a sewing machine shaped cookie cutter. How freaking awesome is that? And it's not small either. This is going to be a good size sugar cookie right here. So just in time for the holidays, especially Thanksgiving, right? That's when you take food to all of your families. What if you could just take a bunch of cookie cutter or cookies that are shaped like sewing machines? I'm super excited for this, and I'm planning on making some sugar cookies with these like tomorrow. So that's a cool little sneak peek. If you're not a member yet, we only have a couple more of these boxes available. Actually, we're about sold out. So you're going to want to go to sewupbox.com and sign up to get one of these boxes. You'll have to become a member and register as a sewing club member before the end of October in order to get the box with that really cool cookie cutter in it. So if you're interested, go ahead to sewupbox.com and get registered. We'd love to add you to the sewing club. Okay, so here's another little sneak peek into the upcoming box. Pretty cool, right? So if you're a member, you'll get boxes full of sewing goodies, sewing projects, fabrics, and tools every month, and video tutorials that are exclusive to our members. So go ahead and check that out. So I think that we're getting to the end of this week's live video. So let's go ahead and take some questions. Okay, so first question is, what does bias mean in sewing? So this is a weird one, right? Because if you're biased anywhere else, it just means that you are not open to other opinions, right? But bias means something else in sewing. There's a lot unfortunately, there's a lot of words like this that people won't necessarily know unless they have a detailed sewing background. Unfortunately, a lot of sewing pattern companies still use them. So let's talk about bias really quick. I'm going to use this fabric piece as a demonstration. So hopefully if I hold this close enough to the camera, you can see the fibers. Maybe not though, but basically, if you look at any fabric, you will see that there are some fibers of thread that go up and down and side to side. Now bias, fabric's bias is going to be exactly diagonal of that. So instead of up and down and side to side, it's going to be diagonal. And the reason that that's important is if you pull this way, a fabric doesn't really stretch. If you pull up and down, it doesn't really stretch. But if you pull diagonal, it stretches a lot. Now, the most common place to see the word bias is bias tape. So what does that mean? That means that those strips of bias tape that you see in the store are cut diagonally on the fabric and then sewn together. And the reason that's important is it means if the tape is cut diagonally, that you can stretch that tape. Now, if you're using bias tape, typically it's good to stretch it just a little bit as you're sewing it on. That way it doesn't get all bulky and bunchy. And this also helps if you're using bias tape to go around a curved edge, like maybe a neckline. You're finishing a neckline with bias tape. You're going to want to stretch that a lot. Otherwise, it will just kind of like stick straight up. So that's the importance of bias in sewing. Next question. How do I adjust bobbin tension? Great question. So first, let's talk about why you would want to do that, because maybe some people here aren't aware. So tension is not as scary as a lot of people in sewing make it out to be. It just means the tightness that the sewing machine holds on to the thread as it's sewing. Now, if you think about it, if there's no tightness being held on, then there won't be a way for the sewing machine to make a tight stitch. It'll just all be loose and wiggly. So if you're sewing and you see a lot of loose and wiggly threads sticking up from the bottom side, so like the thread that should be on the bottom of the fabric is sticking up to the top of the fabric through the hole that the sewing machine needle makes, that means that there's no tension or tightness on the bottom thread because it's not being pulled back down to the bottom side of the fabric after every stitch. Now, there can be two causes. Number one, your bobbin isn't threaded right. So it's good to start by just rethreading the bobbin. If that doesn't fix it and you have a front load sewing machine, I'm going to show you really quick how you can change your tension. But if you have one of those sewing machines where you put the bobbin in the top, right in front of where your presser foot sews, then that issue is caused not by bobbin tension, well, by bobbin tension, but you can't adjust it. It's just because you missed hooking the bobbin thread in the little hook as you thread the bobbin, so make sure your bobbin is threaded correctly. Now, if you have a front load bobbin, like the kind with a little bobbin case that you stick in the front, you can adjust the tension, and I'm going to show you how to do that right now. Let me grab a front load bobbin. Okay, so thanks for letting me go grab this. This is what a front load bobbin case looks like. Okay, so if you've got this threaded through this little crack, which way? There we go. Okay, and if you hold onto this thread and let it hang and it doesn't like jiggle down, if it doesn't roll down, then you're good. If when you jiggle your hand, this goes down. So you go jiggle, 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 and the bobbin goes down. So this bobbin started here before I jiggled, and now it's down here. That means that it's good. If you were to jiggle, see, did you see it drop? If you were to jiggle and it stayed in one place, then your tension is too tight. If you were to hold this bobbin like this and it wouldn't stay in one place, even when you don't jiggle, like if you just pick it up and this goes down, that means that the tension's too loose. Now, right here, let me see if I can get this in front of here. So right here, there you can see it. So here's where you put your thread through and then the hole that it sticks out of. Now this little plate right here with the 2 screws, that is your tension plate on a bobbin. Now you can adjust this tighter by tightening these screws. You can adjust it looser by loosening these screws. The important thing to know is to not go very far at once. You'll want to just go a minute turn at a time and then retest, because it doesn't take very much to change the tension on a bobbin with that tension plate. Okay, so I hope that that helped, and I hope that you had a lot of fun this week. Also, don't forget to comment below and let me know for my argument with my friend. Do you sew with shoes or do you sew barefoot? I'm super curious to see and tally up all the answers so that I can tell my friend I'm right. But maybe she's right. I don't know. So let me know, and I will see you guys next week.